Since everybody else is taking a moment to weigh in on the whole Bryan Harsin situation, I thought I would as well. And so I'm going to address this whole thing with Bryan Harsin from a couple of different angles. So the place I want to start from is obviously I've already given my reaction to the Penn State game. Obviously, I was disappointed just like all of you were. But I think the main problem with that game overall is how we lost. It was an embarrassing loss at home, 41-12. And I think if it had not been by such a wide margin and such a dominant win by Penn State, it would not be so bad for Coach Harsin. I thought, we had a possibility to win, but I knew that losing was a real possibility as well. But the reality is I thought it was going to be a closer game, and I think a lot of other people did too. And because of it being such a blowout, that's why you see so many people calling for Coach Harsin's job. And I don't know. This is tough. So as far as my opinion on this, right now, this moment, no, I do not think Coach Harsin needs to be fired. You may disagree, and if you do, tell me all about it, please. But as of this moment, no, I do not think Coach Harsin needs to be fired. I think in general, as a fan base and as a school and as a program, we've got to get to a point where we can hire a guy and give him enough time to recruit, build the program, bring the coaches in that he needs to run a successful program, and then just give him the time to make it work. I get that waiting is hard and waiting is frustrating, and it's especially frustrating when your main two rivals are doing so well, like Bama and Georgia. It's extremely frustrating. I'm just as frustrated as you are. But at some point, we've got to be able to hire a coach and let him do his job. And I don't see that happening with Coach Harsin. I think that based on everything we're seeing, there is a concerted effort to get him out of the job. I don't agree with that right now. I may have a different opinion later on in the season, but as of today, I don't agree with it. But that was a horrible, terrible, embarrassing loss. I know the players have to feel that way, so this is not a slight on them. That's not how I mean this. I'm more talking about this from the coaching perspective right now. So now let's kind of go through what we know about Coach Harsin, and we're just going to go through all of it. I want to first start with the effort to get rid of Coach Harsin that really started in the offseason. I think what happened in the offseason towards Coach Harsin was absolutely disgusting. For people to truly try to assassinate his character like that, it was appalling, and I can't believe that anybody would try to get rid of somebody in that way. You can't take something that's not true and not proven and use that to try to get somebody out of a job just because you don't like the job they're doing. Fact is fact, and if you don't have the evidence to back it up, keep your mouth shut, because there's no reason to drag that guy through the mud like that. And that's what happened for Coach Harsin in the offseason, and I was just disgusted by that whole thing. Now, let's talk about what's happened since then. Since then, based on what I've seen, it truly looks like there is an effort behind the scenes, and I'm probably reading into stuff, but it looks like there is a true effort behind the scenes to set things up to fire Bryan Harsin. So let me tell you a few of the things I've noticed, and it's probably some of the same things you've noticed. So first of all, we had the off-season coup. That was number one. Number two, we have a new president in place at Auburn. And then number three, and this is the biggest one, the athletic director who brought in Bryan Harsin, Alan Green, is gone. He was not renewed or fired or however you want to say it, but he basically they came to an agreement, and Alan Green will no longer or is no longer the athletic director at Auburn, and they have an interim in place. I can't remember his name. I think it's Rich McGlynn maybe. But they have an interim athletic director in place. So with those three things, you have the offseason coup, new president, new AD, things are not shaping up well for Coach Harsin. So with all those things happening, he was kind of on a short leash. If he wins, all of this there's no question. They're not going to do anything. But all these pieces were put in place, and it's almost like they're just waiting for him to slip up. And then what happens, we have her first Power 5 game of the season, and it wasn't just a loss. It was a complete beatdown from Penn State, a complete and utter beatdown. And now the people who want him gone, you better believe that they're paying attention to that. And you better believe they're already having conversations behind the scenes. Whether anything actually happens or not, that's another story. But the people who tried to do this first coup in the offseason, you better believe they're trying to drum up something now behind the scenes. And that becomes even more evident with all the articles that have been coming out. Because there have been multiple articles on Saturday and Sunday all talking about Bryan Harsin leaving, Bryan Harsin getting fired, places Bryan Harsin can go. And that's a lot. Those are a lot of articles being written about one topic for one loss. And like I said, it's a bad loss. I get it. But I don't understand how that many people are saying the guy's going to leave after one loss of the season. I know the standards are high at Auburn, and I want them to be high, but at the same time, I don't know. It just seems a little off to me. The next thing I want to look at is two articles or two statements that were put out. One was from Justin Hokanson at Auburn Live, and the other one was from Paul Feinbaum. So first, let's take a look at the Paul Feinbaum quote. And this one is similar to the other articles I mentioned. Feinbaum says, "It was a disaster. You can't start carving the name on the tombstone yet, but it's hard to imagine after what happened Saturday that Bryan Harsin survives." So that's kind of what I said. You can't write him off yet. Things can change, but there does have to be some changes in place. So like I said, I'm not done with Coach Harsin yet. I think there's plenty he can do to turn this around. The question is, what is the likelihood of that happening? Feinbaum went on to say, the offense was inept. Nothing that they tried worked. And that was the most frustrating part for me as a fan watching this, is that our offense just seemed like it was walking through quicksand. They couldn't get anything going consistently, and that was evident on the scoreboard since we only scored 12 points the whole game. We got down to the red zone a couple of times, and we just couldn't make it happen. Next, I want to look at the statement that was put out from Justin Hokanson. I'm not going to read the entire article. There's one key piece I want to point out because it has to do with the future of Bryan Harsin. He goes through the attempted coup as well in the offseason. Basically, I can't find the exact quote, but he basically says that one of his sources, here it is. He said one of his sources told him it is entirely possible that a coaching change could be made when the bye week arrives. So that is October 22nd. So if things are going south, things are not looking good, according to Hokanson's contacts or his source, there is the possibility of a coaching change happening on October 22nd or that weekend. And if you're wondering who do we play between now and October 22nd, let's take a look at the schedule. This upcoming weekend we have Missouri at home. After that we have LSU at home. Okay, Mizzou, I think we have a good chance at winning. We are a double-digit favorite. I do expect us to win this game, and especially after the embarrassing loss we have had, I think we will bounce back and get the win. However, if you watch that LSU game versus Mississippi State, I'm worried about LSU now. And I was not worried about them a couple of weeks ago or last year. This year, I'm pretty worried about this game because they look pretty good against Mississippi State. There's no denying that. And so if the good LSU team shows up, we might be in trouble. And then after that, it is just an absolute gauntlet of teams. So then you have our first road game at Georgia. Our first road game is in Athens. You can go ahead and put that as a loss probably. I don't see any way we win that game based on what we saw in our first 3 games and especially what we saw in week 3. I don't see how that's a win. Georgia looks even better than they did last year when they won the national championship, so I'm chalking this up to a loss. And then on October 15th, we play Ole Miss at Ole Miss. That's going to be another tough game. Currently, Ole Miss is ranked number 16. Playing at Ole Miss is going to be tough, and especially when we have been so sluggish on offense and we know how prolific Lane Kiffin's offense can be. And so if we struggle defensively or we can't make anything happen on the offensive side of the ball, we could be in quite a bit of trouble. And that is really our last chance based on what Hokanson reported. That's Coach Harson's last chance to show that he is turning this ship around and putting things in the right direction. So realistically, where will we stand by that October 22nd bye week Saturday? If we beat Missouri, that will put us at 3-1. If we lose to LSU, 3-2. We're going to lose to Georgia more than likely, 3-3. And then if we lose to Ole Miss, that's 3-4, even a win, 4-3. The question is, out of those 4 games we have, what is the likelihood we win 2 of them? What's the likelihood that we win 3 of them? I think there's a very good likelihood we win 1. I think there's a fairly good likelihood that we'll win 2 of them, which would put us at 4-3 going into the bye week. And the question is 4-3 going to be good enough for Coach Harsin to keep his job when after that we've got Arkansas, Mississippi State, Alabama. We've just got a slew of games that are going to be pretty tough after that. We've got a long road ahead of us with the schedule, and it's not getting any easier from here, certainly. It's getting a lot tougher. And so the question now is, I told you what we heard from Hokanson, told you what we heard from Feinbaum, told you some of my thoughts on what happened in the offseason, and the question is, what should happen from here? I think what should happen is we should wait and see what happens in these next 4 games. It's clear that there's going to be talk behind the scenes, but let's see what happens when we play these 4 SEC games. Missouri, LSU, Georgia, and Ole Miss. I think by that October 22nd date, we're going to know a whole lot about our team, and we're going to know a whole lot about the direction of our team. So the question is, after this rough loss to Penn State, can our team bounce back? If they can't bounce back, we are in a lot of trouble. But if this team is resilient, if they can make improvements, then who knows what can happen. But right now, based on what I've seen so far, I think we were fairly exposed in this game versus Penn State. And we know teams are going to be looking at this film and breaking down what worked for Penn State, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of it. So Coach Harsin and his team have to come up with a game plan to not only attack what they see on film from the other teams, but with the mindset that other teams are going to use Penn State's game plan against them. That's just a fact. It's going to happen. It only makes sense. This worked for Penn State. What did they do that worked so well? Because we're going to use it against Auburn too. And so by October 22nd, I think we're going to know a lot more. No, I don't think he should be fired today, even though there's a lot of people out there that would like to see Coach Harsin fired today. And then finally, what do I think will happen? I mean, personally, I feel like the writing's on the wall for this one. I think there is a group, I don't know who they are, but I think there is a group out there that is trying to get Harsin out. Take all those pieces I've already given you and put them together. Off-season coup, trying to get rid of Harsin for cause. New president is gone. That may or may not be a part of this, but regardless, he's gone. New AD is being looked for right now. Alan Green is gone. That is definitely a part of this equation. And now, with the questionable performance on the field, is that the final piece of this puzzle that the boosters or whoever need to get rid of Coach Harsin? Because let's be honest, if there's some powers that be behind the scene that want something done, what's the likelihood that a new president and a new athletic director or interim athletic director are going to do anything to stop it? That's just what I think so far based on what I've seen. And now what I'd like to know is two things. I told you what I think will happen and what I think should happen. And I want to know from you, what do you think should happen with Coach Harsin? And what do you think will happen? I hope this doesn't come across as alarmist or anything like that. I was really trying to make this more level-headed, or as level-headed as I could, because there are certainly a lot of alarmist pieces out there in the media. I just told you what I think will happen and what I think should happen. And ultimately, guys, we've got to get to a place where we can hire a coach and give them enough time to do their job. I hope this was helpful for you. Tell me what you thought. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I will see you in the next one.